All characters in the story are over the age of 18. I was driving home from work when the bell rang. Reluctantly, he accepted the phone. My older sister's husband called to complain about his wife, who he asked to pick up from the corporate party. I was tired all day, but I had to agree that there was no way he could take her away from there. When I arrived at my sister's place of work, I saw a disheveled woman. Her hair was unkempt, her makeup was smudged, and her clothes were in disarray. It was clear that my little sister had enjoyed herself. At the corporate event, I assisted the inebriated Jessica in entering the vehicle. Subsequently, she extended her arm in my direction. I averted her gaze, exercising self-control, yet she proved to be unsatisfactory. I proceeded to a secluded location to attend to my younger sister. After parking, he methodically guided Jessica into the rear seat of the vehicle. It was evident that an individual at the event had already exploited her state of inebriation. It was unlikely that many would decline such a charmingly appearing woman. I had no objections, and neither did her husband. I did not harbor animosity towards him, but then I was preoccupied with negative thoughts. We engaged in intimate relations in the back seat of the automobile. I was aware that this was not the most appropriate course of action, given my sister's circumstances. However, I was indifferent. Furthermore, she expressed a desire to proceed, and I did not want to displease her by refusing. Consequently, I started the car and drove to her residence. I was preoccupied with my thoughts and emotions, and I realized that I was not ashamed. She's not an angel, but I should have realized that. Finally, we arrived at Jessica's apartment, which was on the 3rd floor. I was dragging my inebriated sister with her hand on my shoulder. She was in a terrible state, slurring and stumbling. I was preoccupied with my thoughts and emotions. I realized that I was not ashamed. She's not an angel, so I should get over it. Finally, we arrived at Jessica's apartment, which was on the 3rd floor. I was guiding my inebriated sister with her hand on my shoulder. She was in a terrible state, slurring and stumbling. We did the same thing again that we did in the back seat of the car. Jessica turned in my direction, her eyes closed, and fell asleep satisfied. I knew that I probably should regret what had happened between us, but I couldn't bring myself to feel shame or guilt. Just like the first time in the car, she stopped being just a sister to me, and I couldn't help but feel a sense of sad satisfaction. I couldn't help but wonder what I was going to tell her in the morning. Although at that moment I was also a little drunk, so I couldn't think straight, I decided to just. Jessica awoke first in the morning, looking somewhat pale. After consuming a strong alcoholic beverage, she began to regain her composure and realized the situation. I was already sober, as I had not been too intoxicated before going to bed. At that moment, I was slightly panicked and found myself at a loss for words. In an effort to calm myself, I suggested repeating our favorite activity. However, I recognized that this could exacerbate the situation. Surprisingly, although my sister was in shock, she firmly refused to give in. She was the first to rise and make her way to the bathroom. We decided to have breakfast, drink coffee, and discuss everything in the kitchen. I inquired about the corporate party. How was the event? I asked. Jessica gave a nonchalant shrug. It was interesting and a little embarrassing, she said. I was calm, or at least I wanted to seem so. You should have held back. I'm drunk. I don't understand what I'm doing. It's not my fault. Yes, you justify yourself to your husband. Tell me you were drunk so you cheated with a colleague. Well, come on, please don't tell him anything, and I assure you that I am not angry with you. She gave me a wink and I replied, I'm glad you liked it. I smiled, realizing that she was trying to appease me. We could do it again if you'd like. I nodded in agreement. Jessica decided to assign her younger sister, Olivia, to me. The younger sister was the exact opposite of the older one. She was shy, and I would hardly have believed that she was ready to cheat on her husband. She valued her marriage more than her relationship with Jessica, even though she had a difficult relationship with her. Jessica's spouse contacted me, and she expressed her excitement and asked me to meet Olivia and take her somewhere. I was taken aback by her request, but I agreed, although I had my reservations. I thought the older sister was joking when I took Olivia to my residence. She revealed her intentions, and I was surprised by her decision. I underestimated the older sister. It appears that if she dedicates herself, She can influence Olivia to behave similarly. When we arrived at my residence, Olivia was not as courageous as before. Her smile conveyed nervousness about the impending situation. "You know what happened with Jessica, right?" I inquired, attempting to gauge her reaction. "Yes, she told me everything," she replied, blushing with embarrassment and simultaneously brightening up. We began conversing, and at her request, I began to recount my version of our encounter with Jessica. Olivia listened attentively, and her curiosity was piqued. After a lengthy discussion, she and I proceeded to the room, and I proceeded with my account. Olivia decided to extend her stay with me for one additional night. She expressed a desire to recommence the activities she had initiated previously. Apparently, she became aware of an apparent discrepancy. I appeared somewhat displeased the second time after breakfast. She escorted me to the room herself. Olivia had been married for 5 years. One day, she confessed to Jessica that her husband had been neglecting her and was engaging in infidelity with his mistress. In fact, you can terminate their relationship. Recently, she discovered her husband with his mistress at home. She decided to disregard her principles. I followed Jessica's advice and enrolled in classes with her, assuring her that I would not cause any harm. I was enthusiastic about the prospect, and so we proceeded with Olivia on 2 separate occasions. Our initial encounter was somewhat uncomfortable, but the undeniable chemistry we shared made for a highly enjoyable experience. On the second occasion, we engaged in such a manner that we lost track of time, and it wasn't until the following morning that Olivia became aware of the events that had transpired. She did not harbor any jealousy towards Jessica, as Jessica was also a close acquaintance of hers. Meanwhile, Jessica continued living her previous life. As I mentioned, Jessica was a spirited individual who did not apologize for her actions and was always free. Olivia and I were both concerned about Jessica's reckless behavior, but we knew it was inevitable. I always said that if her husband found out, it would be her responsibility. Although Jessica continued her wild antics, we were a family bound by devotion. This led us to an experiment. One day when they were both at my place, Jessica suggested trying something new. Her voice was quite mischievous as she looked at Olivia and me questioningly. "What are you up to?" the younger one asked, expecting Jessica to say something strange again. I was thinking. Regarding the prospect of undertaking the task in collaboration, Jessica responded with a playful expression. I was taken aback by this revelation. Olivia candidly acknowledged her feelings of uncertainty, stating, "I'm not entirely certain about my readiness. I've never done it before either, but I'm eager to give it a try," Jessica replied. "It's going to be enjoyable." I remained silent during their conversation. The outcome hinges on the youngest's decision. After a brief period of contemplation, Olivia nodded in agreement and took a deep breath to compose herself. "All right, let's proceed, but I can't make any promises. I'll be handling the majority of the workload," I stated. I had the realization that reality is not always as beautiful as it appears on screen. To be honest, I was confused, which made the girls laugh. It was clear that I didn't know what to do. Jessica and Olivia exchanged smiles, both of them laughing at my reaction. This went on for several months, but I had no idea that everything would change so soon. Olivia soon realized that she was pregnant with my child. This fact made her finally decide to divorce her husband. In the meantime, I was going to change jobs. I quit my old job and found a decent job in another city. We decided to move there with me. As soon as we settled in our new place, we agreed that we needed to keep our relationship secret. We told everyone that we were a couple. Jessica visited us occasionally. I knew for sure that no matter what happened, I would always love and protect my younger sister and the unborn child. So even though I wasn't going to get married a second time, I still got a family. All the characters in the story are over 18 years old. A website called Forbidden Confessions is hidden in the nooks and crannies of the dark web. This site is an opportunity for individuals to discuss their past encounters with family members, confess their transgressions, or showcase their secrets to a receptive audience. Rather than facing vilification and condemnation, these individuals receive encouraging feedback from others who perceive no issue with their actions. The site caters to a diverse audience, ranging from those who experience guilt for their actions to those who seek recognition from a broader audience. Suppress guilt for others. This confession sounds different. Perhaps their story is a humorous, if forbidden, memory or even something they enjoy to this day. But who could they tell their story to without being demonized for breaking the rules of society? Thus, forbidden confessions are a mixture of sinful, but at the same time pleasant and loving encounters, as well as truly shameful acts that the perpetrator deeply regrets. This side is not for those who are worried about any stories, but for those who have either experienced it or want to experience it. Use these stories to. We are able to vicariously enjoy the experiences of others, even those that are considered wrong, and we derive a sense of comfort from knowing that others share our interest in these topics. Even within this group, there are various motivations for attendance. Some are here to enjoy lighthearted interactions between family members, stories about forbidden love, and the dynamics between parents and their adult children. However, there are also individuals whose interests extend to more mature content, including stories about blackmail and taking advantage of oneself. Regardless of one's motives or reasons for attending, whether it be to confess or to simply enjoy the content, this group caters to a diverse range of interests and personal preferences. If you are reading this, you have either come here to confess something, or you are here out of unhealthy curiosity. Either way, I hope you will do what you came for. My name is Roy, and I am 73 years old. I have visited this site many times since I discovered it 2 years ago. I have been intrigued by many of the stories on this site, but I have never felt the need to share my own. This continued until today, when the golden anniversary of the event that changed my life forever is celebrated. I hope that for everyone who is or has ever been in a similar situation, this will revive pleasant memories of that magical time when you first experienced. It is a satisfying experience to discover that what is commonly regarded as incorrect can indeed be correct. During the summer of 1968, my sister Rose and I endured a particularly challenging period, which cast doubt on our previous understanding of the situation. Our father, a priest, firmly believed in a stringent set of religious principles. According to his beliefs, individuals who committed any sin were destined for eternal damnation, unless they underwent 24 hours of kneeling and sincere repentance each day. Our parents' strict adherence to religious principles, which they perceived as the antithesis of worldly indulgence, was a significant factor in our upbringing. While our mother imparted her lessons at home, our father dedicated his time to the church. The congregation was modest in size, and the tithes he received were meager. The family's financial situation was stable, allowing them to maintain a modest yet comfortable lifestyle. Rose's mother contributed to the household income by offering piano lessons and providing educational support to the neighborhood children. Despite their limited financial resources, the family had secure housing, adequate nutrition, and appropriate attire. Their minimal social circle was due to their infrequent participation in community activities. The close-knit nature of my family, exemplified by my sister and me, might be perceived as unconventional by today's standards, particularly within the context of a modern Pentecostal church. However, this approach was not uncommon during that period. My father's practice of annually entrusting the management of the church to an assistant pastor, while he dedicated his time to teaching and preaching at the Six, we attended the Renaissance summer camp in the southern part of the country. The event was sponsored by the Ministry of Internal Affairs and was well attended. My sister and I were able to visit the camp for free. I know it's great, isn't it? Who wouldn't prefer to spend the summer with children our age and have fun instead of the opportunity to receive additional religious education? I know you think it was still a camp where there should have been at least some entertainment. While there were children our age, they were raised in a way that was similar to us but one step above the Amish. As a result, it felt as though we were talking to our own reflections. Some of the other children may have felt the same, but they were too afraid to speak up. This summer was particularly challenging due to the fact that, at the age of 18, we began to participate in adult religious activities, such as prayers and Bible study, and were no longer permitted to attend many activities for younger children. It goes without saying that when we helped our parents pack our bags and suitcases into an old van, we were less enthusiastic than ever. Now that I've addressed some of the logistical details, let me address the main subject of your inquiry. As you can imagine, the topic of making love was forbidden, except that each of us had our own private lives. We were no longer permitted to attend many activities for younger children, and began to participate in adult-only prayers and Bible study. When we helped our parents pack our belongings into an old van, we were less enthusiastic than ever. Now that I've addressed some of the logistical details, let me redirect the conversation to the purpose of your visit. As you can imagine, the topic of physical intimacy was strictly forbidden, except that each of us was informed by our respective parents that this was only permitted after marriage. No explicit details were provided, no explicit instructions were given, and no explicit explanations were offered about how this would occur. There was no mention of how we would ensure our safety if we engaged in physical intimacy, as it was incomprehensible to our parents that any of us were interested in such activities. However, it should be noted that this was not the intention of our parents. I inquired about this several times with my father, and he replied that as soon as I meet a good God, I am concerned that a young lady may develop romantic feelings and enter into matrimony for the wrong reasons. I am willing to dedicate my life to this endeavor. This information is not known outside of our household. We did not attend school to interact with those who were aware of the situation. The children we spoke with at church were equally uninformed, as were the individuals at the camp. I understand that this may be difficult for young people to accept, but it is important to consider that there was no internet, videotapes, or other forms of media available at that time. You were of legal age to attend adult cinemas, yet your access to films was limited. However, over the past few months, I have found myself reflecting on this topic more frequently. No amount of isolation can prevent one from experiencing intense emotions and a natural curiosity about the opposite sex. At one point, I remembered that I had dreams about women I knew from church or from the camp. Even though I had little to no concept of what a woman should look like, my mind continued to ponder the matter. If you are a man reading this, please note that it is a frustrating experience to be unable to find relief, and this was exacerbated in my case. Some children today are under the impression that their parents are strict, but in our case it was even more pronounced due to the lack of a social life. As twins, we were exceptionally close, and our relationship was even more so. We were the typical couple you read about in forbidden stories: brother and sister, playmates, friends, accomplices in crime, confidants, and in general everything for each other. I always dressed respectfully around the house, as if we were going outside, wearing either jeans or sweatpants but never shorts. Despite being brother and sister, it was not permissible to show any inappropriate body parts. I was fascinated by my sister's remarkable facial features. Women in the church were not allowed to use cosmetics or jewelry, other than wedding ones. Rose's natural beauty was undeniable. Her red hair was brighter than mine, fortunately.